70 years ago, this was King Saud's first trip outside his country to forge an alliance with U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt.
But understanding each other's problems brings East and West together for a better world.
I think we signed a Faustian bargain with the Saudis, that in exchange for stable supplies of oil, and this has continued till this day.
But when OPEC imposed an oil embargo triggered by the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, the U.S. launched what President Richard Nixon called Project Independence.
By the end of this decade, Americans will not have to rely on any source of energy beyond our own.
What happened instead, the U.S. increased its reliance on foreign oil to a peak of 60%. In the past few years, though, the explosion of American crude production has cut that dependence to less than 30%. Nearly half the imports come from its friendly neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Meanwhile, the increased U.S. confidence in its energy security is evidenced by three recent decisions: lifting a 40-year ban on exporting American oil, preparing to sell off nearly 1/10 of the nation's strategic petroleum reserve. And in a blow to Canada, President Obama put an axe to the Keystone XL pipeline project, a decision dictated, he said, by environmental concern. President Obama has also declared that America's military assets will be rebalanced away from Europe and the Middle East and toward Asia and the Pacific, but perhaps not just yet.
I think the pivot to Asia is maybe not as quite as important on the forefront of our agenda as we made it at the time.
Energy expert Charles Ebinger says the rise of ISIL and the Arab Spring's failure will force the U.S. to concentrate on protecting its old interests.
I don't think we have any good options in the Middle East right now. And now we add Iran back into the equation. If they come out of their isolation with the lifting of sanctions, they've always been a player, one against our interests.
So even if the U.S. does enjoy a greater sense of energy security than it has in decades, the geostrategic ties that have bound it to the Middle East are not soon likely to fray. Tom Ackerman, Al Jazeera, Washington.